Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Just going to give everyone a few minutes at the top of the hour as they're joining in. Really appreciate you joining us for Mid-Level Donors Major Impact, the missing bridge between annual fun and major gifts. And while we're waiting for people to sign on, if you guys want to get used to the Zoom controls here and press chat and let us know where you're calling in from. We'd love to hear where you're joining us from. Let's see. Got Albany, New York, South Carolina, Texas, New Hampshire, Illinois, Iowa. Oh, wow. You guys are from everywhere.
Colleen.
That's amazing. Colorado. I even saw Zimbabwe fly by on the way there. This is
Welcome.
amazing. We're so happy to have everyone join us from all across the country and the world. We really appreciate you guys being here today. And just a little bit about AGP to kick us off. We are a full service, comprehensive agency who helps mission driven teams grow what matters. We work across verticals, working with healthcare, hospitals, animal welfare, public media, many others. And our team has expertise in the following areas. We're excited to learn more about how we can help you move your mission. Just some housekeeping for today. We are recording today's webinar. So if you have to step away for any reason, we'll follow up after the webinar and share the recording along with the slides. If you have any questions that come up, feel free to pop them in the Q&A area, and we'll spend some time, about 15 minutes or so at the end, answering those questions. Or if you have a comment or something that you want to say, feel free to add it to the chat at any time. We'll be monitoring both. For today's session, here's what we plan to cover. The missed mid-level opportunities. We'll talk about why most mid-level programs stall, help you identify the right mid-level donors and how you can apply stewardship that builds loyalty, and explore expanded giving opportunities. And finally, we'll share some key takeaways and some really great resources to help you get started here. Introducing today's presenters, today we have Ryan Carpenter. He's our VP of Donor Engagement, our mid-level expert, and Colleen Patel, our Senior Customer Service Success Manager. With that, Ryan, would you like to introduce yourself and share a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure, Megan. Thanks a lot. Well, welcome everybody. Glad to have you join us. Another webinar dedicated towards mid-level giving programs. I myself have been building and leading mid-level programs for about 14 years now, I want to say. And, in that time, doing a bunch of other stuff to support. And when I work directly at nonprofits, I keep coming back to it. Mid-level giving programs for me are just very interesting. There's always a lot of innovation involved and love talking about it. So I'm glad to spend some time with you all and my colleagues today to do that. Colleen, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Colleen Patel, a Senior Customer Success Manager here at AGP. I work with nonprofits every day on donor strategy, and a lot of that focuses on mid-level giving and figuring out how to build those programs that are effective but also realistic, especially for those organizations that are using the platform Giving DNA. Happy to be here.
Great. So let's get into it. The mid-level opportunity most organizations miss. And so, what we want to start with is just the what we believe is a gap in the fundraising pyramid. So, in my experience, and maybe for many of you on the call too, most organizations, most of our clients, typically allocate most of their budget towards direct marketing, which is the middle and the left there, acquisition and annual giving, and then another substantial amount of budget towards major gift resources. And on the left there, you got to think about we have these very tactical programs designed to acquire and renew. You bring a donor on, you establish that welcome series, look to get that second gift to kind of get them in the flow of annual giving. Perhaps you invite them to become a sustainer, and that's all very programmatic. It runs like clockwork. Um, and then right on the right, you have major gifts, which is completely different, right? It's highly personal, one-to-one, and oftentimes organizations don't have that transitionary program because, to go from that real programmatic set and forget to that personal handheld relationship that is a deeper relationship. And so with that, we got to ask ourselves what's actually missing. And to no surprise of anybody on the call today, what is missing is a real mid-level donor strategy. And honestly, without an intentional mid-level engagement, you're going to see things in like donors plateauing, your major gift pipeline is going to shrink. And frankly, these loyal donors that give it the mid-level, I mean, they're not going to get a name on a building, but if they're writing a check for $1,000 a year, they are very meaningful. It's part of what I'm so interested in is these people that give substantial amounts of giving every year, but if they're treated the same and not given the opportunity to engage at greater levels, they're going to feel overlooked. And really, mid-level donors are the bridge that moves supporters towards transformational giving. And before we go to the next slide, I thought it was really funny. So I put this slide together about a week and a half ago. And then middle of last week, I was asked to do a mid-level audit for one of our clients. And the results, those bullets there, were exactly what I was seeing from this client. They were having stagnation. They were doing a lot of work with their mid-level. Mid-level was pretty consistent, but it's because there was a high churn, low retention, and they were acquiring donors and upgrading donors every year. And then they'd upgrade, and then next year they would downgrade or not give again. And it was because the treatment of these mid-level supporters, it just wasn't adequate enough and it wasn't as reciprocal as how they were treating the organization. And so, really, today's about the benefits that mid-level provides your fundraising practices overall, beginning with your annual fund. And, I'm actually going to start in the bottom left corner. Your mid-level, they give the most and they retain at the highest amounts in your annual fund program. And swinging it back up to the top there, typically, up to 50% of your annual fund revenue comes from just 5% of donors, right? That's your mid-level in many cases. I've had organizations where it's 80% comes from about 15, 40% coming from 2%, but it's a really heavily weighted amount of annual fund revenue every year comes from this small population at the very top of it. And as I'd said, they are loyal. Mid-level donors and the mid-level programs that are running well typically retain at 65%. It can be upwards of 75. That is very common for organizations that are doing it the right way. And ultimately, it's just going to promote stability. It's going to promote forecasting stability because, if you can account for how much mid-level revenue is going to come in year over year, you can pretty much be confident in how much your direct response program is going to raise every year, and stability from building a pipeline of your next major gift donors as well. And segueing to that is, this next side of the spectrum. So we've got the annual fund and how mid-level is really your bedrock. But from there, you have to consider what you're often probably hearing is major gift officers are always asking, where are our next prospects coming from? Because, mid-level portfolios, they do tire out. Somebody is not going to write a 5, 6, 7-figure check year after year after year. There's constant churn, constant qualification. And so major donors, major gift officers are always looking for that next prospect. And the reality is they're already on your file. Mid-level donors are typically very loyal. I've seen in some cases, most mid-level donors are on file for 10 years or greater. I'm very confident to say it's at least 5 or more. They've also increased their giving. They didn't necessarily come in at the mid-level. They came in at your annual fund when you acquired them, and they continue to give year over year, organically upgrading or responding to, an upgrade gift ask array, a proposal, and they're very highly responsive to engagement, which we're going to get into. The elevated touch points that we're talking about, this is the right group of people to focus on with that. And so they really represent the most natural pipeline for future major gifts. And we actually have some, statistics to back that up. Most of your major donors start in the annual fund. And if you looked at your own major gift practice, I'm very confident that you would see that as well. A lot of reporting that I've seen says annually, two-thirds of organizations, not annually, overall, two-thirds of major gift donors start in your annual fund. Think about that. Most major gift donors don't just hop in and write a big check that makes them a major donor. They sometimes they're being very savvy and they just want to test the organization to see how they respond. Or really, it's just organic and they like the cause and they, wrote a smaller check and over time they continue to give and give at greater levels. And in fact, where this comes into play with mid-level and why we're talking about this progression, right, is over half of major donors had been a mid-level donor at some point in time. And I'm just seeing a quick question before I go any further. What threshold are we using to determine mid-level versus major? Great question, Greg. It varies from organization to organization, right? So if you look at it industry-wide, people will say, well, mid-level donor is somebody that gives between 1 and 10. For a lot of our food bank organizations, it's more like 500 to 5,000. We work with a number of public media clients, and their mid-levels 250 to 1,200. And then our hospitals start at 25, 50,000. Generally speaking, when I think of mid-level, it's somewhere between 500 and 5,000. And I put a number on it because of the behaviors of these mid-level donors. Certainly a mid-level donor at a major national cancer institute that's giving $50,000. That's a major donor at many other mission-driven organizations. So when we talk about mid-level, it's your common 500 to just under 10,000 because the behaviors and the tactics that we are talking about today, they work on that group of people. So more than half of your donors were in the middle level at some point in time. And really what's important is identifying and cultivating these donors because you could need to continually feed the major gift pipeline. What's also interesting too is so our food bank vertical here at AGP did a sentiment study with our food banks, and we interviewed several hundred of the donors on file, did some analysis, and 93% of high net worth donors plan to maintain or increase their giving. Now, what's interesting is most organizations, and I can say this from looking at our own client base of a couple hundred different clients, have 50 to 70% of their non-major donors have a high net worth. So you have donors on your own file that you may not even know of that do have a high net worth, and what we're talking about is $1 million or greater. From our own survey, which you can extrapolate onto your donor file, is the majority of them plan to give or maintain or increase their giving.
Uh, Before we move on to the next slide, we did have a question come in the Q&A. Brian, how are you using the term annual fund? Do you mean general giving versus major?
Yeah, general giving, they're in your direct response program, so they're getting your mailing and your email cadence. That's typically what we see with your annual fund. This is your direct marketing program, your direct response program.
All right, move on to the next slide.
Awesome.
Got
So we have a quick poll just to learn a little bit about who's in our room. So you're going to see two questions up on your screen. So we'd love for you guys to give us an answer. We'll give you a few moments to select your group. Megan, when you see a couple of responses, perfect.
got answers rolling in already.
Awesome.
Or give them a few more minutes. First, not seconds here. Seems like how many mid-level donors do you have? Got a lot of people saying just under 500. I think we're ready. I'll show you guys the results here.
Awesome.
Great.
Okay, yeah, so it looks like majority are less than 500. So this often means our mid-level is still emerging, which is a great place to be. Small intentional steps can really create some momentum quickly. And then if you scroll down, we can see our mid-level giving ranges. And it looks like majority is between up to 2,500 and 5,000. And honestly, There's no single right number here. What matters most is that your organization is defining that mid-level group intentionally and consistently inside your organization so everybody knows what you're working with and the mid-level groups that you guys are paying attention to.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's all relative, Colleen. It's relative to your organization, to your teams, which we're going to kind of get into in a moment because that's important as well.
So let's get yeah into it.
We just had another question come in. Samantha is clarifying, are we calling them mid-level based on their annual giving, not their single gift size? Is that correct?
Yeah, so I did see that. The way I've always looked at it is cumulative annual giving, um, rather than single highest gift, single highest gift lifetime or in that year. Because from a donor perspective, if I write two checks for $500 or one for 1,000, to me it's the same. I'm supporting you the same way. But certainly you can view your own definitions by looking at highest past contribution, largest single gift annually. There's no right or wrong way.
And Brittany had a follow-up question there. She's looking for just a brief description of annual, major gift, and mid-level for those who are just a little newer to fundraising.
Great question. And I actually like this because Megan and I were talking about this a couple of months back. Colleen and I did a webinar about really building your mid-level program, and we're certainly talking about some really good strategies today. But the one we did a couple months ago, which we're going to include in our follow-up email, gets you started from what is my mid-level? How do I determine it? How do I treat them? Like really the from start to finish. I'm building a mid-level program, so we'll be on the lookout for the email at the end. But generally speaking, um, your mid-level will annual fund and mid-level typically sit in your direct response program, right? The solicitations and the stewardship campaigns that you send out via mail and email throughout the course of a year. Mid-level, a lot of organizations, and more so every day, are beginning to call out mid-level as this group that's really at the top of their annual giving program, their general donors. And then beyond that, you have your major gifts program, which, again, this can all vary, but the way they're treated is going to be significantly different than your direct marketing. Oftentimes, they're just going to deal with communications directly from a major gift officer. There may be only one or two packages or solicitations that go out annually to them specifically. So it's just a very different relationship and communication strategy. Okay, so we're going to talk about why most mid-level programs stall, but then we're also going to talk, I don't want it to just be a downer. We're going to talk about ways that you can avoid the stall. And so if you want to go to the next slide, I mean, the reality is small teams. I've worked at a nonprofit in the past too, so as Colleen. So we certainly understand it. We work with many organizations of all sizes today, and typically we have small teams managing multiple priorities. In mid-level, it can often just kind of be dropped down on that priority list. And unfortunately, this is just the way most nonprofits live today. Secondarily is limited donor intelligence beyond giving history. So, one way to determine where that value is and create a stronger segmentation strategy to then help those small teams that have multiple priorities is through greater intelligence. So, the data on your CRM and your donor file, that's really great. It's helpful, but it doesn't tell the full story. So, looking at outside outside data sources certainly is helpful for you to prioritize. And then finally, the lack of time to personally steward hundreds or even thousands of donors can be really like demoralizing and lead to the stalling. And that's why steps one and two, or factors one and two, are so important, because recognizing that you do have a small team in many cases, how do I take this on while managing other priorities? And if I don't have the intelligence to do it, I'm kind of just grasping at straws. And so that frustration can often lead to a stall or just kind of taking focus on other priorities that you very likely have. And so that's the can be the reality, but this can also be the reality. The things that Colleen and I work with our clients on while executing our mid-level accelerator solution are first and foremost really recognizing your own capabilities to deliver an elevated mid-level program and experience, right? So how many team members do you have? What's their availability? What's the cost benefit analysis of saying, hey, we have 500 mid-level donors. What if we had somebody on the team personally steward them and pick up the phone and call them throughout the course of the year? What would we be losing? What would that trade-off be? And then also recognizing not only your people and time, but the resources and tools. And so resources is important because you can send your direct mail packages and emails, certainly want to continue that, but mid-level donors, as we'll talk about throughout this webinar, is they're really craving more information, so more impact-related info. So what kind of resources do you have that you can share that'll be meaningful to them? And what are the tools at your disposal, right? Or do you have the ability to send out personalized emails in batch that look like they're coming from you that are, a little bit more high touch? That than your typical email delivery. And then finally, being able to track performance and be flexible. Again, it's important to understand your own capabilities, set realistic goals so you can feel good about the work you're doing. Document your strategy. I mean, I'm probably a stickler for this, but we have programmatic business rules that we put together to make sure that we are doing this consistently, and that we're supporting our clients consistently. And then finally, tracking all this performance. You want to know if you're taking the time to send out personalized emails throughout the course of the year, or handwritten notes, or calling a subset of mid-level donors. What's the effect of that? Are you seeing a lift? You will, at least in our experience, but it's important to track it to make sure that is worth your time.
So now we need to identify those right mid-level donors. And the key word here is right donors and at the right time. So we've definitely clarified that the mid-level universe is big, which means we really need to break it down again into smaller, more manageable groups. So you can see we have 4 different tiers here. At the top are top donors ready to qualify for that major gift. Can these donors make a major gift in the next 60 days? We need to funnel them up to our major gift officers. Next is our mid-level cultivation. These donors have the ability and capacity and interest to make that larger gift. We just need to lay that groundwork for future upgrades and continue to strengthen that relationship with our organization. And then we have our mid-level stewardship. Anytime a donor makes a gift within our mid-level universe, we need to make sure that we thank them above our annual fund automatic thank you that they would receive, but also, again, below that one-to-one major donor thank you. They need to feel special too. And this doesn't have to just be with our department, our development department of 1 or 2 people. If you are working with a smaller organization, we can utilize the help of others who care about our mission. We can look at volunteers or other departments who has the ability to write 5 thank you notes a month. We want to make sure that we're efficient and effective, and really making sure that we are also tracking the rest of our mid-level universe, that 4th tier, because once they fall into another category, we're ready to engage. This will make our mid-level universe, that big, vast group of donors of 500 donors, 1,000 donors, more manageable for your teams. And we really want to make sure that you're making this work for your organization. There are bits and pieces that you can take from this to make sure that it's effective for you so that you don't have that stall. So then how do we create that mid-level segmentation? And one of those ideas is smarter donor identification. We've talked about why some mid-level programs stall. We can't rely on gifts alone. Giving levels matter, of course, but engagement, responsiveness, and behavior helps us prioritize those donors. So we need to combine our internal data with that third-party data to allow us to understand where donors belong and what kind of relationship that they need from us next. So you can see a couple of different examples of information that would be helpful in prioritizing your donors. Are they giving to others? Are they charitable outside of just giving to your organization? Because then that will just allow us to understand that they're likely to increase their giving, as well as giving affinities. Where else are these donors giving to? Can we tie their other interests into our organization in different programs that we're in charge of? And then, of course, capacity. Capacity is very important in knowing where these donations can go, and how they can grow as we lay that groundwork. So this all creates those mid-level segments and makes it more manageable chunks for your departments to handle. So once we've looked beyond giving history and started identifying donors based on behavior and potential, we're going to let Ryan talk about widening the lens a bit for some other
Yeah,
donors.
thanks, Colleen. And just to go back to that previous slide, just to um, be very specific, when we determine value and high potential, it's not all about wealth. Certainly, capacity is important, but you can be very wealthy and not very philanthropic, or really just don't have a priority to support your type of mission. So, the three things that I find have always been most valuable to determining the highest value is, yes, capacity. What's the wealth? And you can look at that through a variety of ways. Also, though, external giving. What's their greater share of wallet that you could obtain? And then finally, affinities, right? So wealth, external giving, and affinity to support organizations like your own. Those three things are the real what's most important when determining future value. Go to the next one, Megan. Um, And so, a couple of different things to consider too. I just thought these were interesting because on the left, you may not be considering your events donors, right? Events donors are often siloed. They're not the ones that are typically mailed and emailed in your direct response, direct marketing programs. And for some really good reasons, many event donors, they're not going to respond to that type of information. And so they may not, make sense to spend on mailing. But again, we have resources, external data that can help you to identify which of your event donors are actively philanthropic, right? They're not just going to the event because their friend who's the president of a company that sponsored a table, and then who responds to, mail and email. And I've seen this question come up a couple different times. So what are the sources? There's a variety of sources that you can go through. We certainly provide it with our Giving DNA solution. There's other solutions out there, whether it's Wealth Engine, iWave, whomever. There's a lot. You could certainly do a quick Google search and find. But the data now is not just wealth. A lot of the providers are going to have wealth, yes, right, but also interests, philanthropic priorities, and those are all the things to help you determine value. Another thing that I wanted to call out too is to re-engage your recently lapsed donors. And this came out again from our food bank sentiment, where we again interviewed several hundred donors and lapsed donors, and two-thirds of them say they're likely to give again. They remain emotionally connected to the mission, and there is definitely a strategic re-engagement that can quickly rebuild the donor pipeline because they're warm leads. It's not acquisition. It's going to cost a little less. They know your organization. So I think if you're looking to grow that mid-level program or bolster and support more major gift prospects in the mid-level program, certainly your event file is worth looking at and definitely re-engaging some of your lapsed donors as well. And so getting really into what are these types of communications, and it boils down to us stewardship that builds loyalty. And so the problem of time and people, if resolved, is going to lead to these outcomes. It's definitely worth the elevated stewardship and overall relationship building that is required to build a strong mid-level program because what you'll find is by implementing these stewardship tactics that we're going to go into, you're going to see retention increase upwards of 25%. That's huge. And this is typically a population that's already retaining fairly highly. Year over year, donor upgrades are an increase by 20 to 30%. LTV, lifetime value, 10x growth. And then finally, increasing your major gift prospects by 20%. It does take effort, but these are the type of metrics you can expect. And as Colleen will show you in a second here, our clients blew these out of the water. And it's all things that we're talking about that you can begin doing today. Oh, one more for me. So let's talk a little bit about, before we get into some examples, the strategy, right? And so we talked about prioritizing and segmenting your mid-level donors, right, with the pyramid there. And now, what does that mean? What do you do? Well, so the things to consider are the what and the how. And so the what. One thing I can't say loud enough is keep providing your mid-level donors what got them to mid-level, right? And typically this happens at the major giving level where they all of a sudden write a major gift check and now they're not receiving anything from direct response, no mailings, no emails, and if they are not a priority for a gift officer, they're not going to get anything. They may not give again. This can happen at mid-level too if you decide to say, hey, you know what? These people are giving $2,000 a year. I don't want to send them the monthly solicitation. They might be offended. No, send it to them. They like getting those stories too, right? But give them the opportunity to tell you, hey, you can lessen things if you want, but certainly keep them there. Don't make the decision for them. Secondarily, increased stewardship is a win-win. All of the programs that Colleen and I operate, it's the personal and personalized stewardship and relationship building. We're not going to pick up the phone and ask for a gift. They are going to get a solicitation in the mail because they're part of your direct marketing program. But pick up the phone and get to know them. That's going to build that relationship, and you will see greater giving and more frequent giving. Also, share impact and outcomes. Now, direct marketing programs work great. There's a reason that all of us do very similar things when we're sending out a solicitation and, there might be tugging at some heartstrings. But mid-level donors, as they begin to give at greater levels, and they are very loyal and have been on file giving for many years, they want to know more about the impact and outcomes of their support. Share that. And so if you don't have anything today, ask your major gifts team, do they have impact reports? Because I've done that for many years. Just borrow that and send it out to mid-level donors. They really like that to see what's coming out of their support. And also recognize how else they are engaging with your organization. I know many of us here are probably aware of, like, we don't want to treat our donors like we don't know them. Well, it's even more so important for donors that are giving greater levels, and talking about the mid-level specifically. Understand if they are a volunteer, if they've attended an event, have they responded to different types of communication for advocacy, things like that. That's important. And then really the how. So when we talk about prioritizing mid-level, it's because it's important to take some subset of your mid-level donors and begin to build personal relationships. Twofold. One, it's important that they understand they're valued. That's really where I always start with this is, again, you're not going to put a name on a building because I wrote you a check for $3,000, but that's huge, right? Like that's a lot of money for somebody to give. And in the analysis I've done, the disposable income that mid-level donors give towards their, nonprofits they care about is a much higher rate than major donors because their mid-level donors aren't all ultra high net worth, super wealthy, but they're giving, anywhere from 500 to 10,000 a year typically. And so personally stewarding them, recognizing how many can you do that for is critical. And then with the direct mail and your direct marketing program, intersperse that higher level impact reporting, like that I talked about, impact reports, sharing outcomes. So maybe you take out, one package where you're doing a solicitation and just send them this. It works. And then digital engagement, it's really the ease of personalization. We have a great example coming up from one of our animal welfare shops that Colleen can go into. And then finally, text, SMS. There is a 98% open rate. I would say, use it for creating dialogue asking questions, not so much soliciting them, but more so asking for feedback, letting them know about new work you've done, new outcomes. That's a great way to create dialogue. So with that, Colleen will talk about some of the stories that we've worked with our clients on that highlight those tactics.
Yeah, let's get into some examples. So you can see that we have worked with Idaho Public Television, and they, prior to calendar year end 2025, began to personally steward their mid-level donors upon making a gift. And in just a short time, their efforts led to a significant response, as you can see on the screen. 89% of them made their largest gift ever. 91% renewal rate, 46% increase in revenue per donor. These are really incredible results, which it reinforces the right people at the right time and stewarding these folks when they make a gift. They also communicated via phone, email, and note. And as you know, Ryan and I have mentioned earlier in this webinar, they had to get some help from volunteers. So not only did their staff make some thank you calls, but they enlisted the help of some volunteer board members because they needed the help. They recognized the importance of stewarding these people and wanted to make sure that everybody got their elevated thank you, and just outsourced some of the help. Um, and so we have another example as well. Houston SPCA showed that personalization doesn't have to be that high lift. They had an early mid-major program, and they identified donors that were responsive to emails and high value mid-level donors. So again, segmenting those donors, making sure that they're reaching them where they're interested in digitally, and then began personally emailing them on a monthly updates about the mission. Again, we have personally in quotes because this is one of those batch emails that makes it seem that that this individual donor is special, but truly you're sending this email out to 500 people or whatever that mid-level program is at. And you can see that they also had some incredible results. 500K plus from 4 families who had never given more than $2,500, 20, almost a 27% increase in overall donor engagement, and again, 10K increase in giving from dozens of donors. Consistent mission-focused updates to the right donors at the right time led to stronger engagement and increased giving.
Yeah, Colleen, you said it all. I just wanted to make one thing clear. Our contact here basically sent out a Razor's Edge batch emails that looked like it was just going one to one, and it was bullet points. Hey, wanted to let you know you are a very important supporter. You help us continue this mission. Here's a few things we've been able to accomplish. And it was just like outcomes, if there was anything in your local news, local media that, if anybody did an interview, and just all making the donor the hero by saying, look, thank you. We were able to do this because of your support. And you could send that to as many people as you want, but we really advocate for identifying who are those high value donors. Because as you can see here, within the first week, somebody reached out and said, I want to write a check for $100,000. And then they got 4 others from 3 other families. So that's not going to happen everywhere, but certainly positive outcomes. We've seen this work time and time again.
And then we have another example, delivering impact by preferred channel. So you can see CHNF took a donor-centric approach with high-touch communications delivered through preferred channels. So you can see tactics included one-pagers on what a program, on what they specifically had given to, organizational updates, handwritten notes. These are just a few different tactics that they did, and they were able to see that 15% of their mid-level donors were reactivated, and then that 71% of mid-level donors were retained. All of this just reinforces the value of listening to your donors. Where do they like to give to? What programs are they interested in? How can we continue to deepen that relationship with these donors? And in doing so, One way we recommend doing that is, if you go to the next slide, is sending out surveys just to get to know them better. Surveys allow us to hear directly from them at scale. We know you can't reach everyone on the phone. Not only do you not have the time, you probably don't have the resources, etc. So asking donors about their interests and preferences within a survey, with an updated or an elevated survey, shows that they're valued and again just deepens that long-term connection. Not
One other
only
thing
do
on that,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry to jump in.
It's
This
okay.
is also, these are like the types of questions you want to, when you reach out to somebody and say, pick up the phone, it's that elevated survey. So to Colleen's point, you can't reach everybody and you can't call everybody. You just don't have all the time in the day. So you do want to repurpose it with a survey to all. But thinking about when you're stewarding them, it's not just calling and saying, hey, thank you for your gift. You want to learn more about them too.
Why are they giving to your organization? And again, we need to use these results. We can't just send a survey and never use the results. We need to track what we're getting, what responses we're getting. If they again are interested in a particular program, if they like to know about different areas within the organization, you need to make sure that they're getting that communication. So you're meeting these donors in what they're interested in and what and how they can feel valued. And honestly, this all ties back to donor experience, which Ryan is going to take to us next.
Yeah, so I mean, bring it all together. Why do all of this? Well, mid-level donors want to understand the impact of the support, the difference they're making, and donors who feel known and appreciated are far more likely to transition into major gift donors, or at the very least, continue to retain at those high levels and give to your organization in those meaningful amounts. Again, this is why I love mid-level because I feel mid-level donors, whatever your definition is, that's a meaningful giving range every year that's helping your organization move forward. But in many cases, they are not treated with any special appreciation if they're writing a check for $500 or 5,000, whatever that is. That means a lot to that person. They've probably been doing it year over year to your organization. And so recognizing, look, I can't personally thank everybody. Who are the ones that you can, but then implementing some personalization to scale that, to give them what they are looking for and letting them know why they are so valuable and important to the mission. So we've talked a lot about stewardship. Stewardship, and it's not just the thank you, it's the cultivation and getting to know your mid-level donors better is a big part of it. But I can't not say there's asking that you want to consider too. And really it's about expand giving opportunities. So we've established that mid-level donors are highly loyal. They've been on file for at least 5 years, in most cases, many 10 years. Even if they only remain giving at the current level, that's likely in the low thousands, so they're financially capable to give in different ways. And many are in a place and have a desire to deepen their philanthropic impact. So, what is it that you can offer? Um, and this is, I just kind of chuckle at this sometimes. Most organizations have all these ways to give on their website, but we're not often doing anything with it, right? If you go to your website right now and look at ways to give, do you have a link to donor advised funds, crypto, stock, planned giving? I'm sure you have at least two of these. And so um, often, because we treat all of our annual fund direct marketing donors the same, it may not make sense to send a mailing about your donor advised funds or crypto. But we're talking here about an elevated mid-level experience. So donor advised funds and stocks are a great vehicle to dramatically increase average gift. In fact, donor advised funds average gift is somewhere around $1,100 compared to a non-donor advised gift of $65, $63, something around there. So recognizing that, look, these are financially capable people that really have a strong tie to your organization. They may have a donor advised fund and they may be not even aware that you can, they can give through you because that just sits on your website. Well, sending out a message once a year about it could certainly have a positive impact. Another one's crypto. Now, crypto can be tricky for many because, well, not every donor, certainly not the little old lady that's been giving to your organization for many years, understands that, the nonprofit space, we have these partners that have these widgets that you just drop on the website and you don't even deal in crypto. The money gets converted and then all of a sudden they can help you to support your mission, right? So you don't want to turn off donors, but recognizing who might fit the profile of somebody that would have crypto. Are they a younger? They're typically younger, male, single, high income, things like that. Recognizing that and then letting people know can also have a positive outcome. And then finally, planned giving. I'm sure it's all aligning right now for everybody. Mid-level donors are very loyal. They also have financial savvy because many of them are not necessarily mega wealthy, but upper middle class. And so they probably have that financial sophistication to be interested about what kind of plan giving vehicles you can accept. And so the result, really, guys, is a stronger philanthropic pipeline. This strategic mid-level program creates higher donor retention. And again, this is the bedrock of your direct marketing, your annual fund program. More qualified major gift prospects. If you are personally reaching out, you're going to get to know people a little bit better. And in fact, you're going to be proactive about identifying major gift donors versus reactive. You're not waiting for that $10,000 threshold, that gift to be made to then, have a gift officer pick up the phone. What if we know that there's a $1,000 donor? And in one case, I think is hilarious. The owner of the Cleveland Indians wrote a check for $1,000 to a food bank that I was managing at one point in time. Nobody would have known anything, but we were doing this, third-party data and research, and it's like, whoa, we should probably send this individual up to major gifts because that was probably a test gift. $1,000 for that person 10 years ago was nothing, particularly when they're writing seven-figure gifts. But that's just a really out there example, but you get the idea. But also just increase giving over time. Not everybody's a major gift donor. In fact, it's like 2 to 5% of your mid-level donors will upgrade, at least the clients we've worked with. But you want the remainder of them to stay giving and give over time. And at the end of the day, just building stronger relationships with some of your most valuable donors, I feel is really important. So when mid-level donors feel seen and valued and connected, they're going to give more and stay longer.
Awesome. So our key takeaways. We have 4 insights that we hope that you take away from today's webinar. An intentional mid-level program benefits both your annual and major gifts programs. Understanding the mid-level opportunity and your staff capacity is critical to not stalling. We want to make sure that you guys are doing what will work for your organization. So make sure that you understand your staff capacity and how to make these key tactics work for you guys. Personal and personalized stewardship are key to a meaningful donor experience. We need to make sure that these donors feel special. And then communicate the ways the mid-level donors can support you. They have the ability and desire to do so, whether that's through a donor advised fund, like Ryan had just talked about. So again, there's just 4 good key takeaways that we hope that you can use from today on. And I'll leave it up to Megan and Ryan to close out anything else.
Thank you so much, Colleen and Ryan. That was some really great information today. And we have just over 10 minutes left and a ton of questions. So if everyone's willing to stick on, we'll answer a few questions here. And then we have a few resources we wanted to share with you all.
Fire away.
All right. Would you include a $250 a month donor and a $3,000 one-time gift donor in the same mid-level category?
Great question. The easy answer is yes, but recognizing that so I think a couple things to consider. Do you have a sustainer society that you would prioritize that group over your mid-level, right? So if you don't have any like branded giving circles for mid-level or a sustainer, and then it's easy, yes, because if I give you 12 $250 gifts or a $3,000 gift, I'm pretty much giving similar amounts and that would fit in the mid-level. One of the things I ran into when I was working with Feeding America is we had a sustainer giving society and a mid-level giving society, and we just basically had to create a hierarchy of what do we want to lead with and what's more important. to our organization and our goals. So no, that's not a great answer because there's a lot of variables, but end of the day, I say yes, they're giving you around the same amount, but also the mechanisms for how you communicate their giving is important too.
Great. Thanks for the question, Luke. That segues perfectly into our next question. How do you segment sustainers that cumulatively give within the mid-level range?
And Colleen, feel free to jump in here at any time. They are fantastic mid-level donors and major gift prospects because if you think about it, their loyalty is they're a sustainer. So they are committed to giving on a monthly basis. And if they're giving at, frankly, anything over $83 a month is over $1,000 a year. That's sizable. So I always looked at them as some of the most valuable and most loyal and important donors within mid-level programs. But I love these questions because it is something you have to consider when you have these two prominent groups within your direct marketing, one being sustainer, one being mid, and then the overlap that you certainly want to give a cohesive experience and not something disjointed to these people.
Thank you. Ruth is asking, what are the most effective ways to convert awareness-driven supporters into structured mid-level donors in low resource contexts?
So let me see that. Convert awareness-driven supporters into structured mid-level donors. Well, I would say work with what you got. And I'm when you say convert awareness-driven supporters, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. So if you want to just add to that, that'd be great.
Wait for some follow-up on that. Ruth, if you're still on, feel free to add some more information in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on it. We can keep moving on. Can you define what a lapsed donor is for everyone, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, so lapsed is typically anything over 12 months, right? Because if you think about annual fund, it connotates annual giving. And so we're using kind of like the same language, different words to describe the same thing. Your direct response program, your annual fund, those are all your donors that are receiving your communications annually. That's your general and mid-level donors. And if they don't make a gift at the 12-month mark, they are typically considered lapsed. Now, you may still be mailing and emailing your 0 to 24-month donors, or if you have the budget, 0 to 36. But regardless of that, anything after 12 months is lapsed. And if anybody's on public media, if anybody in public media is on the call, we understand that you guys have a little bit of different cadence. But yeah, 12 months is probably the most straightforward answer.
Perfect. Thank you. How many donors would you recommend each mid-level gift officer to steward?
So good question. If you have an individual who is dedicated towards managing mid-level and carrying a portfolio, we recommend that somewhere around like 700 to 1,000. And you may say, well, that's a huge number, but they're not a major gift officer. They're not going out to coffee, going out to dinner, going to people's offices. This is really, for the most part, picking up the phone quarterly cultivation and stewardship, right? So just on a quarterly basis, making sure you have a touch point with this individual. If they are local and want to meet, great. But the objective is to really just get on the phone or have a Zoom call. So you can do that all from your office and been doing this for a long time. Anywhere from 700 to a little over 1,000 is easily manageable.
Perfect. Sarah Schwartz is asking, we have a hard time converting donors from the $500 to $1,000 level to making a compassionate, firm ask for folks to join our major giving program at 5,000. We know these folks support us and likely would respond well to an ask, but there seems to be some fear around making the direct ask, even after positive, high touch relationship is built. What are your thoughts on some actions we could take there to make that a little easier?
That's a great question. I think ultimately comes down to 500 to $1,000 donors. They're not all the same, right? As we've established. So recognizing who has the ability to become a major donor and marrying that with the engagement you had, right? So like the way we would look at it is we would call our $1,000 donors, get to know them a little bit more, why they gave, why they supported us, what were we as a priority, right? Because maybe don't really care about us, but they really care about healthcare and we're the local food bank, right? So if you can identify that, look, we are a philanthropic priority, and then if you have some wealth screening, third-party data to say, look, they have capacity, you should not be fearful. I would be pretty careful about that though too, not just run with that tomorrow, but certainly I think you can begin to be confident if, look, we just spoke with $1,000 donor that said we are their number one philanthropic priority, and we've screened them to see that they have a net worth of $8 million. Well, then putting a case for support for them to give at the $5,000 level should not be something that you should be shy away from.
Michelle is curious. Do you find benefit to external facing branding for your mid-level programs? So treating it like a giving club?
Oh my God, I love this question. Michelle, yes. Okay. I wish we had more than 4 minutes. Um, I think everybody should have a branded mid-level program, honest to goodness, because without it, we just have like these internal mechanisms for talking about these people. With a branded mid-level program, and the benefits don't have to be crazy, right? Exclusive info, insider info, personal concierge calling. But the thing is, you can then talk about them. You are part of this important group that helps our mission continue and grow. And then psychologically, people are going to really kind of feel that and say, well, I should continue to give my $2,500 a year because they're telling me I'm important. They're thanking me for all the support. They're letting me know all the great stuff that me and this other small group of people that support does. So yes, if you do have the ability to, I am a huge proponent of that.
Thank you, Michelle, for your question. We still have so many questions coming in, and I don't want to miss anyone's question. But I do want to take one moment just to share some resources that might help here. And for anyone who's still on the call hanging out, we'll make sure to take all of the questions and share them with Ryan in an email and get the answers back to you so we're not
Send
hanging
them to Colleen. She's been quiet.
on.
She knows all this too.
But I'd hate to miss an opportunity to share our latest program, our mid-level program scorecard with you all. This is a quick scorecard that can help you elevate the current state of your mid-level program and can really help you easily identify opportunities to strengthen your major gift pipeline. It's literally like 15, not even 10, 15 questions. And it just really helps to put you in categories to help you realize where your next opportunity is. So if you'd like, we'll share this out with the follow-up email. You can take a few minutes to do it. And with whatever your score suggests, we'd be happy to talk through what your next steps are to really activate your mid-level program. And then finally, Ryan wrote this amazing mini mid-level guide recently, and we just wanted to share it. It really helps answer some of those questions about when's the right time to start and when you can scale. And we also talk about one of our favorite solutions, our mid-level accelerator program that helps people really get started and activate on some of these things. So if you'd like to scan the QR code here, you'll find some more information on really how to get started and turn your mid-level donors into mission critical partners. And with that, we just have 2 minutes left. I'm going to go for one more question, if that's all right with you, Ryan and Colleen. Let's see. Are newsletters an effective communication tool for mid-level donors? Would you recommend starting something like that?
Colleen, you want to take it?
Sure, I would say yes. I think with what Ryan has talked about as well as insider info. So these newsletters can come across as as insider info. And he also mentioned impact reports earlier in this webinar. You know, Your major gift officers are sending these impact reports to your major donors. How can you utilize these impact reports and email them out to your mid-level donors? If you have the ability to send a newsletter to your mid-level donors, I think that's a great way to make them feel special and get that elevated communication with your organization. And again, pointing out different areas that they are likely interested in. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Ryan.
Only that interviewing mid-level donors in those, maybe not everyone, but throughout once or twice a year would be great.
Brilliant.
And newsletters, particularly mid-level ones, they often respond really well even without a direct ask because you're giving them such rich information that people really feel connected and they feel excited to support, the next need that you have. So good.
Wonderful. Thank you, Colleen, and thank you, Ryan, for sharing your expertise and answering all these amazing questions. If anyone is interested in connecting, feel free to reach out to the AGP team here. The follow-up email will come just after this, where we'll share the resources we talked about here today and can answer any lingering questions. I can see they're still coming in, but thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate your time today.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.